You talk about this in the piece. There's basically a new strategy from voting rights advocates that is outside of I don't want to say outside the legal system, but is not going to pursue the remedy through the legal system, but is rather going to take the laws as they stand and aid people in getting compliant, which of course is much more expensive, much more difficult to do, to go around and make direct contact with 20,000, 40,000, 50,000 people who need assistance in getting their IDs. But give me a sense of that.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, the ACLU and other voting rights groups haven't dropped the litigation they're doing, but I think they've recognized the litigation isn't enough. And particularly with Donald Trump appointing judges, it's going to become harder to litigate against these laws. And so what the ACLU is doing is now funding this really dynamic organizer named Molly McGrath, who has worked in Wisconsin for a long time and is from there, to help people get IDs in Wisconsin and other states. And she's only one person, but she's going to try to scale this up. The ACLU membership has quadrupled since the 2016 election to 1.6 million members. They're now doing this new campaign called Let People Vote, where all 50 states in their local state chapters are launching voting rights efforts, whether it's changing a law in the state legislature or fighting voter ID laws. They're all doing something. And what they're trying to do is use this quote unquote people power to actually help voters on the ground, to make it easier to register to vote, to help people get IDs. And that's not going to be able to overcome all of the voter suppression laws, but I think that the courts are not going to be enough. I think you have to fight these laws at the grassroots level, and I think ultimately we're going to need a political solution here. We're going to need different state legislators, different secretaries of state, different attorney generals to try to change these laws, because with all the focus on the presidency and the Congress, and obviously that's very important, the states have really been where this fight has been. And that's not really getting any attention now with all of the focus on Trump.
What about a state like Michigan? Michigan, you had, I think, a difference of even less, maybe 11,000, was it, in Michigan, was the margin of the vote, somewhere around there. What is the state of Michigan's voting laws, and is what's happening in Wisconsin with Molly McGrath, is that being replicated in other states?
Yeah, they're trying to replicate it. Michigan didn't have as many voting problems in Wisconsin, but there were some problems. A bunch of voting machines just broke in Detroit, basically, and there are still questions about the vote there. Michigan has also been trying to pass a more restrictive voter ID law. They abandoned this effort, but I think they're going to try again. Michigan was the closest state in the country in 2016, even closer than Wisconsin. So I fully expect that Republicans there, in advance of the 2018 or 2020 elections, are going to try to restrict voting rights. We're seeing it in a bunch of other states. I mean, I talk about this in my piece. I mean, whether it was cutting early voting in black areas in North Carolina, or purging people from the voting rolls in Ohio, or disenfranchising ex-offenders in Florida, a bunch of states have had these new voter suppression measures in place. I think Wisconsin is the clearest example of the impact of these laws, because the law was so bad and the outcome was so close. But I think these laws had an impact in other states. And I think if you look at where Democrats need to pick up seats in 2018, both to take back the House and also to pick up state legislative races, there are a lot of states with new voter suppression laws, whether it's in Florida or Ohio or Wisconsin. So people are going to have to confront these laws head on in the next election, or else I think this problem is going to get worse.
The amazing thing about this is it's a bit of a stealth technique, right? Because most people don't even think about it. They're not aware of whether or not it's difficult to get an ID. I mean, it's a bit of a pain. I got to renew my license. That's a drag, but I can go in. It's not I have the flexibility to schedule when I go in. I have, whatever the $35 is not an issue for me to go and pay. And it's basically like a stealth issue, right? I mean, it is, it's hard to get. I imagine in Wisconsin, you could ask the average person, like, you have a problem with the voting restrictions, and they'd be like, no, I don't see what the issue is.
Well, of course not. And that's the thing is, if 90% of the public has something, of course they're going to support it. Not 90% of the public's going to support it, but a large majority is going to support it because they think everyone has the same documents they do. The thing is, though, 10% of the public doesn't have these documents. And for the 10% that doesn't have it, which is a huge number of people, hundreds of thousands of people in a state like Wisconsin, it can be very burdensome. And that's why I hope people read my article, because they see the struggles that people face, where if you just move somewhere and you don't have stable residency, you don't have proof of residence, so you can't register to vote. Or if you move from Illinois and you don't have your birth certificate, it's very hard to get a Wisconsin ID to be able to vote. Or if you move from out of state and you want to get rid of your driver's license, get a new driver's license, you have to pay money for it, which is a functional poll tax. And so there are all of these reasons why someone might not have the quote unquote right ID. Because everyone says, well, you need an ID to be able to get on a plane or buy alcohol. And what I tell them is everyone has some sort of ID. They just don't have the quote unquote right ID, right? They can't vote with their Illinois photo ID in Wisconsin. They can't use their University of Wisconsin ID because it's not accepted. And so Wisconsin has been very, very targeted in terms of what they allow and what they don't allow to make their law among the strictest in the country. I will just say that there's also some very clear evidence of the partisan purpose here.
Of course.
When the law was debated behind closed doors, Republicans said that they wanted to stop, quote, neighborhoods around Milwaukee and college campuses across the state from voting. On the day
I
of
remember when that guy, I think you're about to mention it. I remember that interview live. I think it was I feel like it was on NBC or CNN or something.
Day of Wisconsin's primary, the night of Wisconsin's primary, Glenn Grothman, a Republican congressman from Wisconsin, was asked why he thought that a Republican would win the state of Wisconsin after Barack Obama won it by 7 points in 2012. And he said, Hillary Clinton is the weakest candidate we've ever had, and now we have photo ID, and photo ID is going to make a difference as well. I mean, so everyone knew this was coming, and everyone knew what this law was about. We had both behind closed door testimony and very public comments to the effect of photo ID was passed to help Republicans win elections in a very crucial swing state. And so, I mean, the evidence supports it. My reporting supports it. But all you have to do is look at the public comments to see what was behind this law.
Hi, folks. Sam Seder here. We still need your help on our Patreon page. YouTube ads have come back, but not nearly as much as we had before. So if you can help us out, any little bit helps. Head over to our Patreon page right at this URL, and you'll help us keep helping you by making videos